Good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Jim Norris. I'm the publisher of Entertainment Spotlight and the president of Entertainment Marketer. So today our webinar is about maximizing streaming royalties, which obviously is important to you or you wouldn't be here. So why did we do this webinar? There's a lot of confusion on streaming. There's a lot of different attitudes that it'll make you rich or you can't make anything from it. And today we're going to demystify some of that. But before we move on, I just want to find out a little about you guys. Just if you can answer where you're located in the world. We've got that divided up into parts of Canada, United States, and foreign. Okay, as you can see, mostly Ontario, of course, some Quebec, Eastern Canada. Nobody from outside the country this time, which is unusual. Then if you can indicate your areas of interest, and for people in the music business, there's generally more than one. So this is a multiple choice question here. Let's see already. Okay, mostly musicians. Of course, a lot of musicians are songwriters, music business professionals, educators, pro audio folks, and other. So to be expected. So we're going to be entertaining questions at the end. So if you can just hold them to then. But at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little question mark, the Q&A section. So you can just put your questions in there whenever they pop into your brain. And then Eric will answer all those questions at the end. This is also being recorded, as you heard the voice say. So after this is done, you'll get an email. In the next 24 hours will indicate where the recording is. So if you want to go back to it or if you have to leave early because you had an offer you couldn't refuse. And one final thing, with any learning experience, regardless of what it is, whether it's a webinar, seminar, if you're going to Departure, which was CMW next week, or any other conferences, blogs, there's so many ways you can get your information nowadays. But the important thing is the follow-up. A lot of times we go to these things, gather all kinds of information and stuff it into your brain, and then nothing happens. So it's important that when you're done today, that at some point in the next 24 hours, you sit down and make a list of 3 or 4 things that you're going to do differently than you hadn't been doing before. And that's true of any learning experience in the future. Make a list, do it on paper, do it on your computer, write it on the wall, whichever way you want to do it. But it's important that you have a follow-up plan. So I'm just going to, there he is there. I'm just going to bring Eric into the picture here. So if you were to go to Wikipedia and look up the word ubiquitous, you would find Eric Alper's picture and his description because he's everywhere. If you go to one of the conferences like Departure, that you see him running around at a high rate of speed. Not exactly sure where he's going, but he's running around. Online, of course, Eric has a massive social media presence. And if you're in the media, you get, I can't even count the number of press releases I get every day. And they come in the middle of the night. I'm sure he must time those. I can't imagine he's up at 3 a.m. sending press releases. But then again, who knows? Oh, Eric's got a very long history of knowledge of the music industry as a publicist, as a broadcaster, and just as a guy that knows a lot of stuff about the industry. So welcome, Eric. We're glad to have you here today. Getting your audio right now.
I see. Rule number one, always check your audio. Thanks, Jim.
There we go. There we go. So yeah, streaming, a topic, as I said earlier, some people feel it's a path to riches and other people think it's a big ripoff. Think it's probably somewhere in between. So what are the, just to start with, what are the most important streaming platforms that the audience should pay attention to?
Yeah. Anybody that thinks that streaming services is a giant ripoff needs to get out of the industry. I mean, any kind of looking at the history of the music industry, it's quite easy to see that the gap between what the platforms say that they're paying and what the artists are actually receiving has never been wider. And not necessarily because the platforms are lying outright, but because the way that the modern streaming royalties are, they're never really designed with the individual artist at the center. Going back to my first thought about, you know, the fact that people think Apple and Spotify is a giant ripoff, they tend to forget what the music industry was like before all of this. Back in the late 1990s, early 2000s, there were very few people that were actually paying for music. We had record stores, but of course, it was filled with 25 to $30 CDs that only might have had one or two good songs. But then iTunes came along and kind of changed the entire industry because for the first time, it allowed you to really pick and choose what you wanted to listen to and what you wanted to buy rather than what the industry was telling you to buy. So when you're talking about something like Spotify paid out $11 billion last year, bringing the platform's lifetime payouts to about 70 billion. That's about 70% of the entire annual earnings for the company. That 11 billion in 2025, it's the largest annual payout to music from any retailer in music history. So people that complain that Spotify doesn't pay enough or that it doesn't care about the artist so much and it's not paying you, that's mostly because you're kind of creating music that nobody wants to listen to. But you don't really hear that from the Drakes, the Weekend, Taylor Swift, but it was always like that. The top 1, 2, 3% are always going to be making the most money. So the fact that $11 billion is out there in terms of revenue is kind of astonishing. Uh, you know, I'll go through really like realistically the rest of it. Apple Music, it's up there in terms of the higher payouts. Spotify, by the way, pays anywhere between 0.003 cents and 0.005 per stream on average. It doesn't pay the artist a fixed amount of stream because that payment depends on several factors, including the total streams it's paying out, the listener location, meaning that if you have a fan in Canada or in the US, they're going to pay you a lot higher than if that fan was in Zimbabwe or in, North Korea or somewhere overseas where the amount of money that it costs to get a subscription to Spotify is much cheaper than it is in North America. Apple Music certainly is one of the biggest out there. Everybody knows Apple. We're all probably using an Apple product right now. It pays about 0.01 cent per stream. And the reason why it is that price is because Apple Music doesn't have a free tier. Every single listener is a paying subscriber. So the premium only model inflates that per stream usage rather than Spotify, which has tens of millions of people listening, but some of them are on the free tier, meaning that it's free to listen to, but you have to check out a couple of ads every now and again, or the subscription rate. YouTube Music is actually kind of the biggest and the most understood out of all of them. They pay anywhere between 0.0003 cents to 0.015 cents per qualified audio stream, but that's mostly because that's ad supported only. YouTube Music plays based on the amount of music video that you have, the official audio, the user content that you upload as an artist, the amount of content that other people are uploading, and each of them carry a completely different royalty rate. So you can try to figure out YouTube Music, but even the major labels have a problem trying to really figure out what it is. And the last one, which I think is kind of the forgotten one, because I think a lot of people don't really think about it, is Tidal. Tidal pays 0.0125 cent per stream. And that rate is the highest out there, mostly because of the fact that they charge anywhere between 30 and 40 and 20 and $30 per subscriber. So it's a smaller listening base, but it's a higher fee that they pay out simply because they actually make more money per customer and per listener than any of the other sites that are out there. So that's where a lot of the confusion lies. The easiest thing to remember is on average, a million streams on Spotify will generate about $4,000 worth of revenue. But that's then divided up by the manager, your record label, your distributor, like whether it's CD Baby or a major label or your indie label or DistroKid, and then it keeps coming lower and lower until everybody's paid for, and then you're at the artist, you're always the last one to get paid.
So with an artist looking at the streaming platforms, should they be on all of those, or should they pick and choose, or how should they make those decisions?
Most distributors like DistroKid and CD Baby, they're gonna send it off to 400 paid and free streaming and downloading sites anyway. The one that you should really take a look at out of all of it, obviously Spotify is the most popular. They've got the biggest marketing dollars. They've got the most subscribers by far. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of 538 million subscribers so far this year. But something like Apple Music and Amazon, they have high res audio available. So Spotify is starting more and more to ask people to supply high audio versions of your music. Most people are willing to pay a little bit more for that. So if you have the high res audio version, make sure that your distributor knows about that as well.
And should the artist attempt to do those kinds of things themselves, or should they use a service like DistroKid or one of the others?
You're definitely going to want to go through a distributor. It all depends on how much music you actually have to offer. DistroKid, the difference between DistroKid and CD Baby is that, for instance, and I'm just only mentioning those two because most people are using those. One you have to pay based on the amount of uploads you're doing, and it's going to be a set fee if you upload one song. And then it's going to be another price if you upload two songs or an album, or if you release a new EP or a new single every month for the next year, you're going to be paying a specific amount for each upload. And then the others are one fee per year. So you can upload 50 different albums and 50 different EPs and 50 different singles. You're still paying the exact same rate once. So one is a la carte and the other one is all in. So depending on kind of guesstimate how much music you're actually going to put out, then that's when you can look a little bit deeper into what CD Baby and DistroKid and some of the other distributors offer. Some offer a little bit of opportunities for if you have money to spend, they'll buy visual ads or they'll upload videos to the audio platforms like Spotify. Spotify started doing audio and uploading, and they also will take your video as well. If you're a member of Spotify, you can see on the right hand side, it'll show short 5, 10, 15-second clips of the song. Some distributors don't offer that as of yet, but the biggest ones do right now. Uh, it, there's not much of a difference between them, although that they'll say they are. For the 3,000 internal playlists that Spotify offers, those are the New Music Friday one, the Hot in Canada one, the biggest, the ones that aren't the third party playlisting companies. Spotify has about 3,000 playlists around the world that they run. Whether you're on DistroKid or CD Baby, you're not going to get much clout with them anyway. They're probably uploading anywhere between 450,000, 1.3 million songs every single week. And Spotify is not going to listen to most of them, if not all of them. They're going to make sure that the labels that are on the major labels are taken care of first, the people that have had successes in the past. So if you're through a CD Baby or a DistroKid, you might get your songs on one of their playlists, but chances are, unless you're playing with like a team of a manager and a record label and a booking agent, and you've got the good history and you upload your music 6 weeks ahead of time, 8 weeks ahead of time, 5 weeks ahead of time, you're really not going to have much opportunity there. So on paper, they're kind of both the same. One will just charge you the set annual fee, and the other one will charge you based on how much music you're uploading.
Excellent. And what can you do to make your music more streaming friendly, I guess, in terms of the songs, the length of the songs, the audio quality, all those types of things.
Yeah, what's interesting is like, I think it's not really a surprise when you go and you look at the average length of the song on the Billboard Hot 100 year after year after year. The songs are getting a little bit slower in years, then the songs get a little bit faster in terms of BPM. During COVID, a lot of the songs that were on there got a little bit slower, mostly because people just didn't want to hear uplifting music when there were death and destruction and we were all in complete isolation away from everybody else. And so many songs were about isolation and loneliness and depression and having mental health issues and breakups. Now, despite the obvious, things are a little bit back to normal when it comes to those kind of things. So the songs are getting a little bit more upbeat. But it really all depends on what kind of music that you play. If you play blues music or folk music or classical or jazz, those audiences tend to be more album oriented and they're okay with listening to a song that's 4 minutes long or 5 minutes long because that's historically what those artists were creating in the first place. If you are 17 years old and you write pop music and you are listening to other music like Olivia Rodrigo or Billie Eilish or Chappell Roan or any of those artists, you're definitely going to want to hit the 2:30 mark, no more than 3 minutes, simply because that audience tends to have a little bit of a trigger finger when it comes to skipping songs. What you don't want is having a lot of skips on your songs. The more that you have your audience skipping or total stranger skipping, the more that the algorithm on Spotify or Apple or Amazon or Tidal will not put your songs in their algorithm. Meaning, if you like this song, then you might like this song. The more that people don't listen to your music once they tried it, the more you're going to get knocked down in the algorithm. And it's going to make it that much more difficult to be heard. Having said all that, nobody asked for the Beatles. And nobody really asked for the Sex Pistols or Jimi Hendrix or Billie Eilish or Depeche Mode or Olivia Rodrigo. So you can actually kind of do what you want and create the best song possible. But if you play pop music and it takes 45 seconds to get to your first verse or even the chorus, you might have a little bit of problem getting heard simply because that audience is not going to wait around for the best part of it. That's why Instagram and TikTok blew up in the last 10, 15 years, mostly because those artists took the best parts of the song, which usually were the choruses or one line of a song, and promoted that. Forget about the whole song. People on TikTok were essentially just using one line that the artist had no intention of even thinking about using to promote. But once you put it out there, an audience that you don't even know existed or suddenly using your line of the song, they're helping you promote and sell through no fault of your own, but they're not listening to the whole song. They're just picking a line or two of the verse or the chorus that resonates with them and they think is going to resonate with their audience when they make their own videos with dances or sitting around the room going, with the lyrics underneath it. It really all depends on what kind of music you play and what you think your audience is willing to listen to.
Excellent. And what about in the recording process, the mastering process, the type of files that you would submit for streaming as opposed to making a CD or vinyl or, the other uses of your music? What's the difference there?
Yeah, a lot of the times you're essentially going to be uploading those CD quality material anyway. But, a lot of people don't have the funds maybe for something like that when they're doing everything themselves. These people should, the artists have access to so much more opportunities for a cheaper price to mix and master their own music. Grant Avenue Studio in Hamilton, for instance, is an amazing place. You can actually upload your music to Abbey Road Studios in London, England, and for a fee, they will mix and master your recording. But I think more importantly, going back to the royalty system to make sure that they know that every single stream of a song triggers two very separate royalty systems. The first one is the master recording royalties. When you press play on Spotify, the first royalty that's triggered is the actual sound recording of it. That's the specific audio file of the performance that you're hearing. And then the second one is the publishing royalties. That's, every time that you write a song, two additional royalties are generated from that. There's the mechanical royalty and the performance royalty. So make sure that as an artist, you kind of understand how to protect yourself and make sure that you register all the songs through the performing rights organizations, whether it's BMI or ASCAP or SOCAN, because those royalties are generated every single time a song is reproduced or streamed on demand. Most of the artists that I talk to that have gone viral on TikTok or on Instagram, again, they don't know that they've actually started to go viral, but they also don't know what happens next in terms of payment. So make sure that you do start to collect and you do fill out all the right forms for the mechanical royalties, because they're not going to wait for you indefinitely. And after a certain period of time, it kind of reverts back to the royalty company. So you don't actually get it. So DistroKid, TuneCore, CD Baby, they actually collect your master recording royalties from all the streaming platforms. And then, SOCAN in Canada will pick up the performance royalties on the composition, the publishing administrator, they'll collect the publishing share through your distributor, and Sound Exchange for the digital performance royalty. So make sure that even if you are a brand new artist, that you kind of know the difference between all the different royalties that are out there, and make sure that you're up to date and that you register your songs if you're in Canada through SOCAN or ASCAP BMI in the US.
One of the different subject, but one of the things a lot of artists don't know is that they can also get paid when they perform their songs live from SOCAN as well. And I've encountered a lot of artists that didn't even know that existed.
There is a very, very big thread right now on Facebook that a number of artists in Toronto were very upset that SOCAN's website was very out of date in their eyes. And they also couldn't upload set lists from their indie show that they did on a Monday night to three people and their dog. But realistically, you could get paid just the same for something like that. If you do a search for SOCAN on Facebook, I can't I can't remember who started the thread, but it's a very, very big, long thread right now. And there are a number of meetings that now, either this week, SOCAN is right in the middle of changing their website. So you can upload set lists to their platform and get paid on things like that.
And what about making the music more findable? Is there any clues there what the artist should be thinking about?
Other than making sure that, on the social media side, that the link is in your bio and it should be an all in one link. One of the biggest thing that I've learned in the last couple of years is, despite my misgivings, not everybody is on Spotify. I always used to link on my website whenever I was be posting about a band or a new album. I would always embed the Spotify link in the website. And I got a number of emails from people over the course of last year saying, you know, I never use Spotify. I use Apple or I'm on Tidal. So now I'm just making sure that at least all the artists that I work with have an all-in-one link. It's free to do. If you Google all-in-one link, it'll come up, and that's where you can put the link to Spotify, Apple, YouTube, your website, your tour dates, everything, and you just promote that link. Don't decide on behalf of your audience how they should listen to your music. You just want them to listen to your music. One thing that we should talk about too, not to jump ahead, because I don't know if we were planning on talking about this. I'm sure everybody knows that back in April 2024, Spotify started a whole new rule that you had to have at least 1,000 streams within the first 12 months to be included in the royalty pool calculations. A lot of artists that I saw online were never going to get there. In fact, there were a number of studies that were shown that had something like 89, 96% based on whatever study you were reading, have less than 100 streams on Spotify. Because for most artists that are out there, once you get your family and your immediate friends to listen to your music, where on earth are you going to find more people to check it out? Especially if you don't have a large audience. But you need to do everything you can to crack that 1,000 stream moment on Spotify in order to start triggering the money to be redirected to you rather than to Bon Jovi and Bryan Adams and Taylor Swift. Um, when they announced that, it was pretty swiftly divided. Both sides had evidence to support their position. Spotify was saying that it was just too costly to send out royalty payments to an artist for 3 cents. And other artists out there were like, we don't care. We should get paid for the work that we do, no matter what it is. But you don't, as an artist, you don't get to decide how that platform works. The platform isn't there for you. You are actually kind of there for them until you get to the top 1%. And then you can say, yeah, if Taylor Swift pulls her music off of the platform, it'll make a little bit of a difference. But quite frankly, even Neil Young or Joni Mitchell or other artists who pull their music doesn't make a whit of a difference. And no slight to any of those artists who want to pull their music on any music platform for their personal reasons, whether they don't want the profit to go to war making machines or anything. Doesn't care. They don't care about you. They have no interest in you. But you want to get paid for your work. So do everything you can, even if it means buying Spotify audio ads for a little bit, even if it means boosting the post on Instagram. Every dollar that you spend on Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram, or for every dollar you spend on TikTok, you're going to reach about 100 people. So just try to spend 10, 15, $20 finding an audience, going to not only your audience and making sure that everybody who follows you knows that you have a new single or a new album out. The way that the algorithm is working, something like 5 to 10% of your audience gets to see your post. The other 90% will never, ever see a post from you. That's why meaning the social media platform, wants you to spend money reaching your audience. They're not there for you. You're there to make Meta money. End of story. You know, um, so do everything you can to crack that 1,000 stream mark, and then you can kind of rest a little bit easy, knowing that you have gone from that less than zero mark on Spotify to now there's an actual number on there. And once you crack 1,000 streams, congratulations, you're probably in like the top 1/10 of 1% of all the music on that platform in history.
There was a book years ago called The Long Tail, and this is certainly an example of that. With anything, there's the head of the tail, which is where most of the sales are, and then in the digital world, there can be millions of files online, and the tail doesn't make anything. I mean, it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And Spotify is certainly an example of that because there's kind of no limit to how much music can be on there. Just a more general question for an artist, what should they be looking at if they want to generate multiple streams of income? I'm actually doing a webinar at Sing on that, but what should they be looking at as far as playing live, CDs, vinyl, streaming, songwriting royalties, from radio? What should be and that's a pretty general question, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it it's interesting that, when you have the ability to play music, people tend to forget that it's in the playing part that should make it really fun. So you get to do something where a lot of people just simply don't have the ability to do. So along with, of course, those streaming royalties and the performance royalties and the mechanical royalties, sync licensing is something that everybody wants. I know I get at least a half a dozen emails from people saying, how do I get my music in, hot Netflix show or in heated rivalry. I've got a perfect song for that, you know. And obviously, those sync licenses are paid when your music is placed in a film or a television show or commercial, and they range between a few $100 to, you know, six figures if it's in a major network series or a movie. Most of the time, you need a publisher for that. You need to find a music publisher, somebody like a Warner Music Chapel or Peer Music. They have, you know, a team of people whose job it is to, quite frankly, exploit the music that they have the rights to send to film producers and TV producers to use and TV commercials. There are some times when I've heard that, you know, there was somebody from the CBC Hockey Night in Canada that was just driving around in his car and heard a really great song and called up the band, and suddenly that song was used for one of the highlight reels for the Stanley Cup Finals, for instance. So, you know, if you're going to go to North by Northeast, if you're going to go to Departure, which is what Jim said is the new version of Canadian Music Week, look for those panels with music publishers on it and give them your information. But just know that most of these publishers aren't really interested in one artist with six songs. They want a Bruce Springsteen, they want a Bob Dylan, they want a Fleetwood Mac, they want a Michael Jackson. That's why you always hear about these mega hundreds of $1 million deals, is because they want their profit back as fast as possible. And they want their sweat earnings back, meaning it is going to be more difficult to work you, the artist, with no history that nobody knows about, that they're going to have to spend 65 minutes listening to your music, catalog it, and then go and pitch it, as opposed to taking a Bruce Springsteen or Billie Eilish song that everybody knows that already conjures that kind of emotional response to it. Of course, there's the live music performance. It's the single largest income source for a lot of artists. Merchandise with t-shirts and hoodies and hat, vinyl records. I'm seeing a lot of artists make cassettes again, even though that nobody has a Walkman anymore. It's just a really great way just to put something cool and funky on your table for people to help support. Candles, I've seen phone cases, I've seen every sort of branded accessory possible. And those direct to fan platforms, things like Bandcamp, Patreon, Substack. I have a couple of artists who are really, really funny and great writing. So they've actually created Substack where they just blab out all the things that are going on in their head. Or there's a lot of music writers who used to work in the media who no longer are, you know, they've got a platform like the Toronto Star or the Globe and Mail. So they started their own Substack, and it's just 10 things I've listened to. You don't need to start and have an audience. You can just start and go and promote that. Substack, most Substack are free, but if you want to give away a little bit of a higher content, then the subscriber pays a couple of bucks a month or a couple of bucks a year. Obviously, YouTube and content monetization, there's the neighboring rights, and then license to other artists. The fact that when another artist covers your song, you get their money from YouTube or Spotify. So the ability to maybe do shares of, like, I'll cover your song if you cover one of mine, is always a great way to kind of pitch your song and your composition to other people. And it's a really good payback because you both get to share in, you know, different audiences.
I think that the thing with artists not being primarily business people is that a lot of times they don't have a plan and they don't work all these different things. I notice, you know, some of the artists that I get a lot of emails, a lot of press releases, a lot of things, and you go have a look at their Facebook page and they've got 27 followers and they've all got the same last name. And obviously they're not working that at all. They're not inviting people. They're not doing anything to get, because Facebook is, it's public. I mean, if you've got a Facebook page with no followers, that's not doing you any good.
Yeah, I think for a lot of artists still, I think it's difficult. I think there are some artists who are just too scared to write anything other than buy my music, listen to my song. They don't want to get canceled. They don't want to reveal anything publicly. Some of them are really shy talking about themselves. Some of them just simply don't know what to post. even though that we've all seen kind of what goes viral or that they're part of sharing something that is very, very cool, a lot of people just don't realize that they can do the same thing as well. A large part of going viral and a large part of being successful on social media is rarely talking about yourselves. It's got nothing to do with you. You can post as many times as you want about buy my music. I've got a new song out. I got a new album out. Nobody cares. I mean, that's not news. Everybody has that. There's again 110,000 to 150,000 new songs being uploaded each and every single day. So why is anybody going to care about you? And the fact of the matter is that they don't. If you, as an artist, think about who you love as an artist, what artist, what musician, what person in music that you listen to all the time, that you've listened to the longest, that you've found recently, chances are you've gone from being a passable fan and a passive fan to a hardcore fan because you know about the person. You've seen what they're like, at least personally, or as much as Beyonce is willing to show you, or as much as Wet Leg is willing to show you, or other artists that you may love. And that's where the whole revealing who you are. Your fan base may care that you've got something new, but your fan base not only wants to see you succeed, but they're going to help you succeed. But first, they have to buy into who you are as a person. Most of Bon Jovi's fans love John Bon Jovi. Very few of them will actually put down $20 or $700 for a concert unless they know for sure that they are buying into what a Bon Jovi as a concept is. That's why you could be somebody like Kanye West and do all the anti-Semitic thing that he's done, but still yet have an audience because his fan base doesn't care about what his views are of certain races, religion, color, sex, or creed. That's okay if you're a fan. If you that's how you choose that, go for it. But most people out there who love Michael Jackson, who are streaming the music, they know he's bonkers. They know about the monkey. They know about the molestation charges that he was later found innocent. They know he was in sleeping in an oxygen tank. They know that he was zipping off the planet, but they don't care. They will support him either way, but they have to know all of that. When you are an artist, and after your family and friends, again, listen to your music, they have to buy into who you are, why you created music, what you do in your spare time, the hobbies that you do. When artists, when I start working with an artist, the first email I send them once that press release goes out is I send them a list of 100 things to post about that's not about you, and all of it has nothing to do with the song. You can post about your first music teacher, talk about the last album you bought, talk about the first album you bought with your own money. If you follow me on social media, you know that I like to ask questions to an audience who cares to answer them. And, you know, it's not designed for me. It's really designed to get conversation started on music that maybe people who don't have anybody else to talk about music get to share their thing. So I'll ask questions about, if you had, what concert do you regret not seeing? And tell me the reason that you didn't get a chance to see them. Talk about that. I can talk for an hour about the time that I didn't see REM in concert in 1988 because it was a holiday and I got stuck going out for dinner with my parents. Like, it still drives me up the wall that I never got a chance to see the tour that I wanted to see from my favorite all time band. Still bothers me. If I did a post about that, I would probably get about 400,000 views and people talking about not just REM, but the concert that they never got a chance to see. That's what people want to talk about. And because it's you, you as an artist, the first thing they're going to think about is answering the question or talking about the thing that you talk about. And then they're going to like you. And if they like you, that you're halfway there to them even listening to your music because again, they want to see you succeed because you're a good person.
I think you've obviously interviewed a lot of people, and so have I, and some people are just boring. I mean, that's part of the problem, so it's gonna be reflected in their music, and I think it's important for anybody really, but I think for an artist, anybody who needs inspiration is just to experience a lot of different things in your life, and especially, different things. You know, if you drive to work every day, just a simple thing, just take a different way, you know, something like that, and all of a sudden you start seeing things you didn't see before. Or if you hate country music, as an example, make it a point to go to a bar in the next week and listen to some country music, because that will affect your output, whatever it is, whether it's musical or artistic or anything. It is just to make sure there's a lot of input coming into your being. And then you'll have more to talk about on social media and way more to write about.
Yeah, look, some of the greatest ideas that I've ever done with an artist didn't come from music. They came from the business world or they came from the sports world. And also too, like it's fun to go to a place or read a book or watch a movie that you think you are going to hate. Chances are you actually might be right and hate it, but at least you can try to figure out why it's successful. And that stuff is really fun. Obviously, don't go on social media and go, I just went to the fucking worst country bar and I don't understand the IQ of these people because you don't want to limit your audience. Because quite frankly, you're not going to care if all of a sudden Morgan Wallen's fans start listening to you. You don't care. You want to be heard. The other thing about it is, look, Jim, I don't know if you play an instrument. I don't. I've never
Yep.
played anything well. Like,
I
not
played
even
played quite a few actually.
like, I'd never been in the studio and done something more than look and watch because it's all magic to me. I've got no production skills. I can't play really. I stunk at the drums the one time I actually got in front of the drum. I never took any lessons for anything. I couldn't tell you how to read music, but all of this is magic to me. That's why I'm in the industry that I'm in, because what these musicians out there can do is magic. And these artists should never take for granted that their audience understands what they do. Teach somebody how to play their song on camera. Show somebody how to play Fleetwood Mac on the piano. Tell them what it's like being in the studio. Show them, take pictures, do a slideshow, make a video, do a behind the scenes video of the video, and then do like the editing process video of making the video. Interview the set designer, interview your producer, if you're in a band, interview each other. The fact is that nobody can do what each of these artists can do. That's why, without sounding like Dr. Seuss, that's why you're you. And never take for granted that these people out there in the world are not enamored and jealous that you get to play music for a living, or at least as a hobby. Think about what it's like to be that audience. What kind of things do you think that they would be interested in? And chances are you're probably right.
Excellent. So we've got a whole ton of questions here. We'll start dealing with
Uh-oh.
some of these. First one says, can I rely on the distributor, such as DistroKid, to collect all the royalties? Or should I also register all of my songs with SOCAN? What does SOCAN need to identify my song? So that you may have answered that already, but if you can deal with that question.
Yeah. So look, everybody should register their stuff at SOCAN anyway, mostly because, um, mostly because you know distributors come and go, and the really big one of DistroKid or CD Baby today may not be around tomorrow. So DistroKid, even though that they're a music distributor, they collect the master recording royalties that the platform generates. That's where DistroKid's song ends. SOCAN is the performing rights organization, and they collect the performance royalty on behalf of the songwriter and the publisher. They also now administer the mechanical royalty part of it. So you got to do both.
Excellent.
And so, quite frankly, SOCAN will never go away. There'll always be a SOCAN in Canada, or at least if they get bought out 20 years from now, that person will be handling that. Today's Facebook was yesterday's MySpace. You know what I mean? CD Baby, Spotify, all these companies, Amazon could go down or bankrupt or sold tomorrow and decide to get out of music. But at least when you register your song through SOCAN, it's going to be there seemingly forever and has been since the start of that company and organization.
And if you're near one of the SOCAN offices, they're quite amenable for you to come in, meet with them,
Oh,
and
and they're great with answering questions too. Yeah.
yeah, advice and, they have reps that look after that. So if you're in Toronto, for instance, you can go in and set up an appointment and
Yeah.
get all your questions answered. To clarify Eric's comment on royalty rates, is he quoting them in dollars or cents per stream?
Cents.
Cents, that's what I thought.
Zero. So here, so I'll give you an example of it. So if Spotify pays out 0, so okay, so Apple Music pays out because it's a lot easier, 0.01 cent. So then you would have to have 1,000 streams would essentially pay out like $1 on Apple Music. Amazon Music pays 0.08 cents. So it's roughly about $8.80 per thousand streams. Both
Can we
dollars and cents.
Yeah. This one says, can we talk about self-published indie artists in Canada when it comes to international US publishing? Are we getting those publishing royalties?
So can yes.
Yes. So they collect for all the other performing rights organizations. Is there a mechanical royalty paid for music used in stories on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok?
Yes, provided that you have registered everything on it. Social media, I mean, places like Meta has always been one of the most financially murky sites out there. Twitter, X, for instance, don't pay music royalties. And it's been a bane of existence on the music publishers in the US who are, I don't want to, I want to get my words right, put a claim to sue Elon Musk and Twitter X because because users were using music and they believe that Twitter should be doing more to stop non-licensed music from being on their platform. Spotify does not easily translate to TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. So there's a huge amount of music that's being used daily. The amount of money is massive that is theoretically owed, but the only thing that triggered a mechanical royalty on social media is when it's reproduced, meaning it's copied, it's stored, or it's transmitted in a way that provides a new instance of that recording. So on social media, the trigger is immediate when a user uploads a video to TikTok with your song playing in the background. It will find your song through the royalty rates, and therefore the multiple acts of reproduction occur then too. So if I upload a song and I do a crazy dance and it gets uploaded by 50,000 users, you are actually going to get money on each of those 50,000 users. You're going to get money on the original upload because the platform storage of the file makes it available for every viewer to use. Therefore, it's reproduced on it. Now,
Excellent.
whether or not if your distributor is doing that, that's something for you to keep your eye on. So if you start to go viral on stuff, make a mental note to check your every quarter file and make sure that you're getting paid on that.
Just a note here, in addition to SOCAN, Canadian writer publishers need to register at CMRRA for the mechanicals. If you can just explain that part.
Yeah, it's funny. The CMR SOCAN administers the mechanical royalty through the division of SOCAN, which was formerly known as the CMRRA. So they help collect the reproduction royalty that's generated every single time that your song is streamed or used or downloaded on any of the platforms. So definitely check out the CMRRA site. Every time that somebody does a cover of one of your songs, at least on CD or used on video, the CMRRA collects the royalties on their behalf to pay you out as well.
Excellent. So, can you talk about MSRC codes and the best place to register them?
The ISRC code.
Yeah, they say not sure the acronym is correct, so that's you're probably right.
Okay, so the ISRC code is the International Standard Recording Code, and it's a 12-character identifier that's assigned to your specific song. So the UPC code is the barcode that goes on the back of your CD, those little numbers. The UPC code is on every single product that is for sale. You go in the supermarket, all you see is barcodes. So your album or your EP gets the house, which is the UPC code. The ISRC code is all the things inside that house, which is your song. So it's like the fingerprint of the recording. So every single song that's on Spotify, every single song that has ever been recorded and released on social media should have an ISRC code. And when it's played on radio or when it's played on social media, it triggers on the back end what the sound of it is, and that sound is linked directly to the ISRC code, so it knows who to pay. So it's permanent, and it's across every single platform, every territory, every license deal. And if you use a producer, they should be able to spit out as many ISRC codes for it as possible, and also put it and they embed it into the sound file of it. And if you don't have one, if you go to ISRC code on Google, it'll have a number of sites where you can upload your music and it'll spit out an ISRC code for you.
Excellent. So we're just getting close to wrapping it up here. Earlier, I alluded to the fact that when this is done or any other learning experience is done, that the person attending should have some kind of to-do list. So in your mind, what should be the to-do list for the average attendee today? Top three, four things that they should do differently starting tomorrow morning.
I would spend $5 on the platform of your choice, boosting the post of the video that you have uploaded directly onto that platform and not linked to YouTube, but boost the post to like-minded fans of an artist that you think if they like them, they will like you. Try that. And if you get 532 views, you know that that was the wrong artist to pick. But if you get 6,000 views or 7,000 views, then you know that people are sharing your music and you guessed right. So try that. Spend $5 tomorrow boosting a post and then email me, DM me, let me know what happens. And I'm always here for any questions, further talks, bitching about compliments, anything.
Excellent. So yeah, thanks a lot, Eric, for coming today and sharing your knowledge. Thanks for all the people that attended.
Thank you, everybody, for coming and taking time out of your busy schedule.
Make sure you do your to-do list. And as I said, there will be a
Look,
recording.
I got applauding. I got somebody I've never seen that. Oh, here's another one. See,
There you go, like a thumbs up. So yeah, good day, everybody, and we'll see everybody soon.